Hello there. So let's discuss the use of legends in the wrestling business these days. On the March 5th episode of AEW Dynamite, Jake the Snake Roberts makes a surprise appearance. And like the Stephen Strange of wrestling, he cuts this really scathing, beautiful promo on Cody where he calls Cody Caesar and says he doesn't respect him. He turns his back on him, and it's really powerful. It was a real powerful promo. And I couldn't help but juxtapose that with the Bill Goldberg situation in the WWE from the Super Showdown show, where Bill Goldberg, at 53 years old, beat The Fiend for the WWE Universal Championship. And most people would say the Jake Roberts promo is an effective use of the legend, while the Goldberg match, especially the Goldberg beating the Fiend, was not an effective use of the legend. But what if I tell you that they're both effective uses of legends? Here's why that's the case. Jake Roberts physically can't go anymore. He's actually a lot older than Goldberg, and his body is obviously destroyed from years of drug and alcohol abuse. He simply can't go. But mentally, he still has all of his faculties. This means that even though the body can't go, the brain still can. And since Jake Roberts' advantage has always been that he is a master psychologist in wrestling, that is still his most marketable strength, is to be able to cut these beautiful, dark, uh, damp promos, and he can still do it. And now that he has this croak to his voice, it's actually more sinister than it had been before. And I loved the usage of him. But the benefit of this is that he's obviously in this position to help make Cody. He's not going to be he's going to maybe from the promo he says he's probably going to bring some guys in, which might end up being Brody Lee and Lance Archer, which makes sense. And they probably do this the match beyond or blood and guts match or whatever. And these things make sense. It makes perfect sense to do this with Jake the Snake Roberts because he can get away with it. WWE does this sort of thing all the time where they bring in a Mick Foley to cut these really passionate, memorable promos. I remember one promo Mick Foley was cutting it. He was so in the zone his teeth fell out. Like it was that is the benefit of the legends. They know a lot more about the business. Even they physically can't go. They know what fans want to see and what fans want to hear, and they know where the money is in the promo. That's one of the things that in wrestling that they consistently talk about. Where's the money? And sometimes, in the money, when it comes to the veterans, is always in building the next generation. That's always the case. So what about Bill Goldberg? The Bill Goldberg situation is the exact same thing. Because in some cases, in order to help the future, you have to do a little bit of damage. Okay. For starters, a lot of people will say, hey, you could have had Bill Goldberg versus Roman Reigns without Goldberg wrestling the Fiend at all. To that I say, sure, you could have done that. But would you really believe, would the casual audience believe that Roman Reigns would lose that match? The answer is no. And a lot of people still don't believe it. But Bray Wyatt losing to Goldberg now says that, hey, maybe Goldberg has a chance. Now, of course, those of us who are really smart knows that Goldberg has no chance and he's going to lose because they won't do to Roman Reigns what they did to Bray Wyatt. Now, there's a lot of different things that we could talk about when it comes to Bray Wyatt. He never should have had the title in the first place. He's a horror villain like Kane and Undertaker, and they didn't get long reigns with the title, and he shouldn't either. And that makes sense. Kane was champion for one day. Undertaker was champion for 2 weeks. You know, these sorts of things just kind of happen. But the big picture is that Bill Goldberg is a guy who's going to put over the future. You know, Roman Reigns is already the face of the WWE. I mean, as far as on camera, consistently performers, Roman Reigns is the guy. And Goldberg is going to lose and give the belt to the guy. Essentially, he's going to pass the torch to Roman Reigns, much like Undertaker did when Undertaker wrestled Roman Reigns not too long ago. This is an effective use of veterans. Veterans exist to put over the youth. This is what they do. Now, in order to do that, sometimes they have to take a guy down a bit. You know, sometimes you have to kick him a little bit. Because if the veteran does not have any bite to what he says or does, then he can't put anyone over. Especially if he's been out of the ring for a long time or away for a long time. The Jake Roberts promo was definitely necessary to reestablish Jake as a guy who still got it. You know, he still has it. The it factor. He still has it. Now, yes, it did make Cody look a little silly because he didn't do anything. He didn't respond. He didn't have any response. He just got drugged by Jake Roberts, and Jake Roberts walked away. Earlier this year, I believe, DDP did a similar thing with MJF, where DDP came in and he said some mean things to MJF, kind of made him look a little stupid. And DDP actually wrestled a match. DDP's team lost. It was a tag team match or something like that, and DDP team lost. But when you see veterans, that's usually what they do. They come in, they get a little bit of shine on them. Maybe they get in a little too much offense in one match. Maybe they drag a guy on a promo. But that's just to get the fans back into the guy. And then the youth kills it. You know, in the end, the youth kills it. Very rarely. And usually, really only Undertaker, this kind of things happens where he kind of goes over the youth, and that's just kind of it. Like when he beat Bray Wyatt, then they beat them again at the Survivor Series, which that's kind of rare. You know, usually when you look back throughout history at how older talents have been used, they exist to put over youth. And there was another thing that I was thinking of the other day. This video before Jake Roberts made his appearance on AEW Dynamite, I was thinking of the Goldberg situation, and paralleling that with Bob Backlund. For those that don't know, Bob Backlund at like 46 years old or 45 won the WWF Championship from Bret the Hitman Hart at Survivor Series in 1994. Bob Backlund had not been champion since 1982 or 1983. So from 1978 to 1983, Bob Backlund was the WWF champion. He lost the title to the Iron Sheik in a very controversial fashion. This, of course, is the transitional period between Bob Backlund and Hulk Hogan. You had the Iron Sheik had his short run so that Sheik could drop the title to Hogan. Now, when you look at that, is that an effective use of a veteran? Absolutely. Why? Not just because it served a purpose via storyline, because Owen Hart, you know, helped Bob Backlund win the title. You know, he talked his mother Helen into throwing in the towel in a submission match, and Bob Backlund won. But it was also a situation where Vince McMahon wanted to put the title on Diesel, but he didn't want Diesel to beat Bret for it. Why didn't he want Diesel to beat Bret? Well, because he wanted to have Bret and Diesel at the Royal Rumble. And he wanted to have other matches between Bret and Diesel without giving a clear winner. Now, he had, I think, a match earlier in 1994, if I remember correctly. They might have had a match before the Diesel-Bret match. They had a match when Diesel was the Intercontinental Champion, I think. And that match had no finish. And they were going to have a rematch. And I think the 1995 Royal Rumble, Diesel Bret Hart match. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. No, it wasn't. Was it? I don't remember. But there was no complete finish to the Diesel Bret Hart feud. until Diesel pinned Bret Hart, or the other way around. Bret Hart pinned Diesel at Survivor Series 1995 to win the title. So Vince was pushing the Diesel Bret Hart feud as a big money feud, and he didn't want to throw that away. He also had the benefit of Bob Backlund being a former world champion, and the next big show, was going to be at Madison Square Garden. It was just a house show. And it happened to be 3 days after Survivor Series. So 3 days after he won the title, Bob Backlund was beaten in upward about 8 seconds by Diesel. And so Bob Backlund won the title for, as the internet would say, no reason. He won the title for no reason. No, he was a transitional champion. He was an effective transitional champion. Because Bob Backlund, look, people did not expect Bob Backlund to win the title when he did. Okay? And nobody was really upset that he lost it. Now some people could say, hey, we could at least let him get a couple of weeks in, and we could have gotten that crazy, I feel like God, Bob Backlund. And that would have been fine. He still could have had Diesel pin him. But the thing is, sometimes you need to have that buffer between two guys. Just like the Iron Sheik was a buffer between Backlund and Hogan. You need to have a buffer. And this is what Bill Goldberg is. Goldberg, you had to get the title off the Fiend. You had to. Now, you could have had Roman beat the Fiend for the title. But then now you have to try to find a way to make that feud interesting throughout the rest of the year. Because the feud between Fiend and Roman, you're doing it in a short amount of time. And now, because they've never faced each other. Technically, okay? Roman Reigns has wrestled Bray Wyatt 100 million times. He has never wrestled the Fiend at all. So, there's no need to rush that. So you put a buffer in between the two of them. And you say, okay, Goldberg's going to beat the Fiend. It establishes Goldberg as a guy who's kind of still got it. It gets some steam on the Goldberg name that wouldn't be there otherwise, other than just, well, he's Bill Goldberg. You should watch the match because he's Bill Goldberg. Now you should say, well, he watched the match because maybe we're going to do something stupid here and Goldberg is going to beat Roman Reigns, even though that's not going to happen. And because it puts some real steam behind Goldberg, and it puts a lot of heat on Goldberg too, by the way. It's a heat position. But, it benefits Roman. And it kind of benefited The Fiend. I mean, The Fiend is going to be in a match with a guy who is an equal to or greater star than Bill Goldberg. And that's John Cena. So he's going to really benefit from this. And it really didn't harm his character at all. I mean, it was kind of foolish. To get pinned it's not that big of a deal. Okay? But when you look at the way that WWE has used legends in the past, specifically Mick Foley is one other one. Kurt Angle is another one. Last year, well, was it last year? Well, Kurt Angle's last match was last year. But they usually do the WrestleMania retirement match, which I love those. I think those are great. The Batista one was pretty good, and I didn't really care for the Kurt Angle one, to be honest, because of Baron Corbin. But usually I like you get to retire at WrestleMania. You get that last big payday. I like that. And that's usually an effective use of legends. When you look at the way that Mick Foley feuded with Randy Orton, the Legend Killer, right? The Legend Killer gimmick built Randy Orton. Spitting in Harley Race's... No, he spit in Harley Race's face. Did he spit in Harley Race's face? I think he spit in Harley Race's face. I think he spit in Mick Foley's face. I think he kicked him down the stairs. Of course, they fucked the Legend Killer up because Hogan wouldn't do the job for Randy Orton, but whatever. Brock killed Hulkamania, crushed the Undertaker and beat up the Hardy Boys by himself and that sort of thing. And so whether your legends are older or closer in age, much like, Shawn and Triple H put over John Cena at WrestleMania back-to-back years, so these things, this is an effective use of legends. Legends come in to challenge the new generation and then they back off. They light a match, they get it started, and then they recede back into where they came from. And this is effectively a good thing. You know, there are some times where you can go too far, and or when the legend doesn't really do a good job of getting the other guy over. You can say sometimes that a legend will come in and they're just really just taking up space. You know, this kind of happens from time to time. It happened a lot in TNA. That was TNA's biggest problem, is they had the legends to put people over, but they did not make sure that the people were put over, right? So, you know, guys like Booker T and guys like Scott Steiner, they came in and kind of made a mockery of TNA. You know, they kind of ran it like it was a joke. They didn't take it seriously. They didn't really help anybody get over as much as they just kind of stood next to them and tried to. And the most embarrassing part is that they turned some of those guys into smaller versions of the legend. Like they would have AJ Styles wearing a Ric Flair robe. They turned Petey Williams into a miniature Scott Steiner. Like that's not an effective use of the legends. Steiner had no business being in the wrestling ring. I mean, if we're being honest, and this was over a decade ago. And why did Petey Williams want to be Scott Steiner? That didn't make any sense. Why did why did Samoa Joe want to be Taz? Like that didn't make sense. That's not an effective use of a legend. But when you have Ric Flair, you know, pass on the figure four leg lock to the Miz, that's effective. When you have Evolution is effective use of a legend. You know, you can look at legends and say they should never win, which is, I don't subscribe to that. I think sometimes it makes sense for them to win, but sometimes it doesn't. You know, I will never forget, and I think a lot of people will remember it when I say it. When Chris Jericho wrestled Roddy Piper, and I think Jimmy Snuka and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat at WrestleMania 25, and people were so surprised Ricky Steamboat could still go. They were so surprised, in fact, that people demanded Ricky Steamboat wrestle Chris Jericho one-on-one. And he wrestled them at Backlash. And that was an extremely fun set of matches for me. And it's really rare that Chris Jericho's in that position where he's the young guy that is going to get put over by a legend. Because Jericho really never gets that sort of look. When people are being... When legends return, it's usually for guys younger than him or guys higher profile than he was. But it was a nice situation that he came up with, that he ended up in because Mickey Rourke backed out of the match. But it's really effective. And I think that the Jake Roberts thing is more effective than the Goldberg, obviously, because he's not going to actually pinfall anybody. But since Bill Goldberg is physically still looks the part, and he can play the part of the physically imposing 6'3" brick shit house Goldberg, he still looks like that guy. He physically is not that guy anymore. You know, he's older. He's 20 years older, but he still looks the part. He's not a fat, you know, out of shape, overweight guy. He can still do all of the Goldberg stuff. You know, he could do a good 70 to 80% of the Goldberg stuff. And to be quite honest, you really don't need to do that much. You know, most people are happy with spear, jackhammer. Spear, jackhammer. Most people are happy with that. Because that's what a Goldberg match is. You know, people are happy with it. People want to see legends do their stuff. Like, there's people out there who would have popped. I would have popped if Jake Roberts would have hit a DDT on Cody. I just thought that would have been great. Okay, I thought that would have been fantastic. You know, to see DDP hit a guy. I think it might have been the Blade, hit him with the diamond cutter. I thought that was cool. It had to be cool for the guy too, to be in there mixing it up with a world champion, you know, guy who used to, you know, millions of people used to watch the guy on TV. I'm pretty sure he was one of them. You know, you can't deny the young generation the rub. You know, you have to let them take the rub. And sometimes the rub means you look a little silly, and you know, but it's a good rub. I still remember all the stuff Heath Slater did when he was, you know, working with legends and taking choke slams and power bombs from Sid and all those types of people, and it was good stuff, you know, because we all still love nostalgia, but we also all enjoy seeing our heroes, whether they're heroes of the past or heroes of the present, at their best. And sometimes we get emotional, and I think the Goldberg situation got people a lot of emotional. It got people really emotional. But I forgot about this, but let's go back to it. Great Muta is 60 years old. And I said on Twitter that, you know, it's kind of strange that people are complaining about Goldberg when the Great Muta, you know, they're Joey Janela or whom Jelly Janela, whatever the hell his name is trying to book the Great Muta to wrestle. You know, like the Great Muta is 60. He can barely move. At least Goldberg can do his stuff. Last time I saw Muta, he could barely walk. You know, like we're talking almost tragic levels of not being able to really do your thing. So the idea that people don't want to see old wrestlers is a lie. People are just offended that because they like the Fiend. If it had been Goldberg versus just about anybody, nobody would have cared. You know, nobody cared that he beat Dolph Ziggler last year. Nobody cared. You know, it was cool, and it didn't hurt Dolph at all. Dolph is a guy who can do 1,000 jobs and get back and be right back in the same position the next week. You know, it doesn't make him any difference. You know, it probably was a huge payday for him, and that was it. But this is what I mean by an effective use of legends. You know, you use them to get the next guy over, to give the guy a rub, get the next guy over, and that's what the wrestling business is all about. You know, Bruno Sammartino came out of retirement to wrestle Randy Savage for the Intercontinental Championship or something like that. After Randy Savage crushed Ricky Steamboat's throat with the ring bell, old man Bruno came out, and Savage didn't beat him. So, well, he didn't lose either, but he didn't beat him. He didn't pin him. I think it was like a disqualification or something crazy like that. You know? So, legends, even if they can't perform at the top level, if WWE has learned over the course of the years to keep legend involvement short. You know, they kind of have learned that these matches don't need to be 10 minutes. They still do fuck up sometimes, like the Undertaker Goldberg match that was too long. Should have just been spear, choke slam, tombstone, whatever. You know, that's really what it should have been. They was trying to do too much. But usually they keep these things short. And that's all we can ask for. Keep it short. If they're going to win the title, okay. Terry Funk was the ECW world champion. Had no business beating Raven, especially Raven, who was this, you know, as Paul Heyman said on the DVD, he was a badass young punk. I think he probably wasn't undefeated. I'm not sure if he was undefeated. I think he might have been. And he lost to an old man. He lost to Terry Funk, who was an old guy. You know? Didn't hurt Raven at all. In fact, it just he added something. Terry Funk added legitimacy to the ECW title as a former NWA world champion who now is the ECW world champion. You know? And it was a hat tip to the past, especially since ECW had shit on the NWA title previously. It kind of made sense that they would try to put some legitimacy back into it. And that's kind of, you know, when you look at these title histories, sometimes you see that Goldberg was the champion. You're like, wow, you know, Bill Goldberg was the champion. Like, this is the title that Bill Goldberg had. You know, so this is an effective use of legends. And sometimes people get offended, they get upset, they get emotional. Don't get emotional, you know? Don't go with your knee-jerk reaction. Don't knee-jerk. Just think about it. What's good is going to come out of this? What good is going to come out of Undertaker chokeslamming AJ Styles? Well, obviously they're going to have some kind of match, right? It was already rumored So they're obviously going to have some kind of match. They're not just going to kill AJ Styles like, oh yeah, we're going to put 3 years or 4 years into pushing you. Then we're going to have Undertaker beat you in 3 seconds. And then, well, that's just it. I'm like, no, they're not going to do that. Come on. Think about it. You know, just put some effort in, put some thought into it. The Jake Snake Roberts stuff is going to be fun. Goldberg and Roman Reigns is going to be fun. Cena is a legend now. Cena in the Fiend is going to be fun. Just have fun with it. That's what the legends are there for. They're there to have fun with. They're not there for people to get all antsy because they might win. And I say, even if they do win, who cares? It's usually to teach the heel something. Because usually the veterans are the heel. Or the veterans are the baby faces usually. They're usually there to teach the heel something. Or to fill a hole in the heel's game. To teach them something. You know, that experience, you know. And this is a good thing. This is how the business grows. Because a lot of people, especially in AEW, where a lot of people are not prime time ready, let's say. A lot of these guys are just not ready to be on prime time. And they can benefit from Jake Roberts and DDP being around. You know, just like even if you're at the top echelon of WWE, you still benefit from being in the ring with a Triple H or, you know, or Shawn Michaels. They'll probably never get Shawn Michaels in the ring again, but you could benefit from those guys being in the back, and you could benefit from those guys being there, you know, and just do it. Just accept what you can learn from it, and hopefully it'll make the person that they're working with better. And usually it does. You know, there's the rare occasion where the veteran gives you the bad advice, but usually the veteran is what fixes you and solidifies you as one of the guys, you know, as a top level guy, because they're willing to work with you, for starters. You know, usually those veterans, man, they pick of the litter. They know who they want. Goldberg handpicked Roman Reigns, you know. So you get to say, like, you know, you get a lot of creative control when you're a legend. You get to pick your spots, you know. And I love that. I like that Trish Stratus didn't mind doing the job for Charlotte. So what? You know, and if Trish Stratus had won that match, would it have really hurt Charlotte? Not really, because Charlotte was already still like a 4,400 time champion. It wouldn't have made her any difference. Hell, it probably would have helped Trish's legend status, because, you know, a lot of people don't think Trish has actually had a real match. You know, most people just think that she had matches with Lita and that was it. It's like, no, she had a pretty decent career. But yeah, using legends to put over other people is always the best use, and that is what's going on at all times. Whenever you see a legend come out there, and you just know that somebody's about to get a pretty cool rub, and let the guy take the rub. Don't overreact about it. Don't think that automatically means he's going to be the world champion, or it automatically means that his career is done. It just means that, you know, the legend thought enough of this guy, had enough faith in him to do an angle with him, to do a promo with him, a dueling promo even. That these things matter, you know, because they matter to us as the people who are in the audience. Because if we hear that The Rock did a promo with The Miz, or you know, John Cena is doing promos with, you know, doing matches with Sami Zayn or whatever, that's eyeballs, and we want eyeballs on the product, because that's eyeballs equals money, and that's what legends do. Legends bring eyeballs. Eyeballs equals money. So, like, share, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.